Wait, what is this footage? This video is not about the game called Shadow of Mordor. It is about the Shadows of Mordor, an absolutely different game from 1987. And cut out the music, this game doesn't have any. Now, The Shadows of Mordor is a sequel to the Hobbit and Fellowship of the Ring text-adventure games, and if you haven't watched my dissections of those titles, I strongly recommend you to do so. If I go into my usual analysis pattern, I'll just repeat a lot of things I have said in previous videos already, so I'll focus mostly on the differences between the titles. Links are in the description and YouTube cards. We continue to use the Commodore 64 versions of these games, as well as, of course, my Stasocritic scoring system, so without further ado, let's talk about design. This category is the most important part of Stasocritic. It has a weight of 4 and is all about how well a title is built and structured from a gameplay perspective. Conceptually, The Shadows of Mordor tries to find a balance between the previous two games. The Hobbit was too systemic for its own good, while The Fellowship was too rigid and linear despite the open environments. Shadows separates the areas into limited hubs, within which you need to find how to progress in a more systemic fashion. So you play as Frodo and Sam. This game is focused only on their journey towards Mordor. You start at Emin Muil and your goal is to get out of this area, with several possibilities how to achieve that. You then get to the Dead Marshes and you need to figure out how to get past those, then you reach Morannon, the area near the Black Gate of Mordor, then Ithilien, and I don't actually know what comes next. I assume it's Minas Morgul, but I've never actually completed the game, which seems to be a recurring theme with these token-based text adventures. Before explaining why I dropped it, let's talk a little bit about puzzle principles in adventure games. On a basic level, a puzzle consists of 3 elements: the motivation, the obstacle, and the solution. So the motivation can be the need to get inside a house. The obstacle is a locked door, and the solution is a key to that door. Now, any of those 3 elements might nest a puzzle within themselves. Maybe the key is held by a guard, so the motivation is you need the key to open the door, the obstacle is the guard, and the solution is whatever is needed to get the key. Now, it is a little bit more complex than that because it all needs to be wrapped in a logic defined by the game, so your actions would make sense and not feel random, but that's the gist of it. The Hobbit lacked the explanation of motivation within the game, but if you know the source material, it all made sense. The Fellowship has made a number of changes from the books, but it provided all the required motivation in the game itself. You never really question what you have to do. The Shadows of Mordor never ever provides motivation to you inside the game, and it made a number of changes from the source material, so even having read the book will not help. I've been stuck for an hour and a half in Dead Marshes. Gollum would only provide hints to reach a particular location, so I just assumed that if this follows the book, we have to somehow trek through the marshes, as I had no idea what else I could do. But after an insanely long time of being lost, I opened the manual, which luckily has a very detailed hint section for those who are stuck, and it said we need to build a raft. A raft? How would I ever know that we need a raft? The game has never presented a situation where we would logically deduce that we need to swim over the swamp water. And to build a raft, you first need to drag 4 logs from a particular spot to another place. To reach the logs, you need to go east and southeast, but to get back to the shore where the raft has to be built, even though all directions are available on pretty much all screens, backtracking will not work. You need to go south, northwest, and southwest. How does that make sense? At best, the puzzles in Shadows of Mordor are a trial and error affair that you can experiment with, as long as you know what is supposed to happen in the story. You know Smeagol has to be tamed, so you figure out through trial and error how to catch him and what to actually say to him so he would become our guide. Nothing in the game ever tells you that there is a particular cliff that you need to climb down. The description on the screen where you have to do it doesn't mention any surface below. It is just like any other high location from which you can't climb down. But having read the book, I know that it was something that happened, so once I see an old tree near a cliff, I began the trial and error approach of trying to use the elvish rope we have in such a way to climb down without dying. You can't really deduce the full nature of the puzzle beforehand without the source material. And there are interesting systemic moments that felt very improvisational and reminiscent of The Hobbit. For example, as Frodo, I once climbed a tree to then jump onto an orc that was following us, and as he was lying unconscious, I asked Sam to stab the orc with a sword. That makes you feel smart and inventive. But also, because the game once again works in real time like The Hobbit and not turn-based like The Fellowship, it can be very easy to get stuck between an array of different orcs and flying Nazgul with no real way to get out of that situation, which has ultimately led me to dropping the game after hours of trying. So, let's open up all the possible scores for the design category. I will assign a 3 to the Shadows of Mordor. Once again, the direction has potential. And it is not a broken game. For once, technically speaking, everything works well. And while there are some redeeming points, in terms of actual design implementation, it manages to take the worst out of both The Hobbit and The Fellowship of the Ring, with the system sometimes putting you into situations you can't get out of and puzzles being very rigid. Only now, you don't even know if what you're looking at is actually a puzzle. Let's move on to context. This category is about everything that provides us, well, with context of the game, story, motivation, characters, world, etc. Its weight is 1, as this aspect is not something that usually fully defines the experience. And we won't spend much time here. Like The Fellowship of the Ring, the manual does a good job of explaining the world, its history in broad strokes, and your overall final goal, which is get to Mordor to destroy the ring. The game naturally lacks any character arcs or detailed dialogue, although it does have some nice character moments shown in gameplay. For example, if you drop the ring out of your inventory when Smeagol sees it, even when he is technically tamed, he'll just snatch it and you lose the game. I thought that was nice. But after opening up all the scores, I will assign a 4. The lack of motivation explanation that I discussed in the design section influences this category as well. Without knowing the source, you just won't get whatever it is you need to do, and it is not systemic enough to generate as many player stories as The Hobbit could. Now we get to aesthetics. Another category with a weight of 1, and I literally have nothing to say I haven't already in the Fellowship of the Ring video. The situation in the Shadows of Mordor is exactly the same, so I will assign the same score, 5. Text descriptions are nice, images are hit and miss, and there is no sound or music to speak of. Next, we have Cohesion. This category has a weight of 2 and is all about how a game combines all its elements together to create a single, wholesome, holistic experience. Once again, we won't spend much time here today. I will assign a 5. I think the direction of the game is good for recreating this experience of traveling through a dangerous lands to destroy the One Ring, to make it feel like it's a Lord of the Rings game even if you won't really get any of the themes that the story explores. But the way puzzles are designed and how you need to approach them with trial and error to understand what to do sort of nullifies that potential. And we get to our final category, emotions. The most subjective category of Stasocritic, but one that has the biggest weight, 3, because emotional impact matters a lot in games. Again, let's open up the score straight away. I will assign a 4. Just like with the Fellowship of the Ring, I saw the potential and really wanted to like the game, especially considering that it does a number of things better, but it is just too frustrating to enjoy. Let's wrap up our video. After taking all scores and weights into account, the Stasocritic rating for the Shadows of Mordor is 33. The game tries to capitalize more on what has made the Hobbit so fascinating, but in the end, it doesn't succeed. At this point, I can only hope that the last text-adventure adaptation of The Lord of the Rings, The Crack of Doom, will.